Kenya's current installed capacity for electricity stands at 2,300 megawatts against a demand of 1,600 megawatts. Now, the country has plans to scale supply to 5,000 megawatts, aimed at lowering the cost of electricity to citizens and industries. Albert Mugo is the managing director of KenGen, who now joins us to speak about the current state of electricity generation in the country. Take a look. We know the country has been keen on geothermal and wind, apart from hydro, which is historically our main source of energy. Tell us about the contribution of all these efforts to the performance of KenGen.
Okay. Now, so the total installed capacity for KenGen today is 1,618 megawatts. And out of that, the hydro takes about half at 820 megawatts. Geothermal is 514 megawatts. The diesel is at about 260 megawatts. And then the wind, which we have a small wind farm in Gong, is at 26 megawatts. So when you look at, in terms of installed capacity, most of our capacity is actually renewables.
And let's talk about exports to the region. Where are we with that, and which are the markets that we are looking at?
All right, so the exports in the region, as you know, traditionally we've been already connected to Uganda. Yeah. We've been interconnected with Uganda since the 50s. And for a long time, they were exporting power to us until about 2000, when they didn't have enough capacity for their domestic market. But because the lines were connected, we kept still being interconnected, so that we help each other. Power flows towards Kenya. If we have a shortage, then it flows towards Uganda. But on a long-term basis, we are net exporters of power to Uganda. So what is happening in the region is that there are interconnections being done around the East African region. We are strengthening the interconnection to Uganda, and Uganda is interconnecting to Rwanda, Rwanda to Burundi, Burundi to Tanzania, and Kenya also to Tanzania. And of course, there is also an interconnector now to Ethiopia. So we see that there will be exports in the East African region in the short term, or short to medium term. But in the long term, because Tanzania will then interconnect to the Southern African pool through Zambia, then power will be flowing all the way from South Africa to Kenya, and possibly to the North Africa, because once you interconnect to Ethiopia, Ethiopia is also interconnected to Sudan and Djibouti also, and we understand that there are plans to interconnect the Sudan to Egypt. So you can see it will be north all the way to South Africa. Let's talk about geothermal, which the country has been very key to look at looking at Olkaria and the rest of the sites. How much are we know towards the end of last year we put about 140 megawatts to the grid. What are we expecting this year? And of course, in the light of the 5,000 megawatts projection for 2017. Okay, so what has happened with geothermal currently is as KenGen, we have 514 megawatts of geothermal. I know that there's a private power company that has about 130 megawatts of geothermal. So for the country, it's a total of about 630 plus, just about there. But the fact still remains that when you look at the pipeline of projects that are coming in, geothermal takes a joint share of that. Let me give an example. KenGen, by 2020, expect to add about 720 megawatts. Out of that, geothermal is 630, and then wind taking the balance. So you can then see that in the short to medium term, geothermal is taking the bigger part of the equation. Finally, of course, again to the issue of 5,000 megawatts, from where you sit, do you see us getting there anytime soon? As you know, it was projected 2017, but so far we are quite far from there. I think what has happened is that in terms of that ambition for 5,000 megawatts, of course, there were different initiatives. KenGen had its own share of 844 megawatts. We have come about half of that. What is the beauty of this, though, is the fact that the demand has not grown as fast as what's anticipated at that time. And so the generation that we have today, which stands at about 2,300 megawatts, is more than the demand of about 1,600 megawatts. So at least the capacity is ahead of demand. Last year, the demand only grew by about 5.5%, which is quite small compared to what was the projection of above 10%.